Okay. So what do you think about the midterm? Good? Oh, the midterm was easy or? Okay. So I see a lot of you struggled a little bit in the midterm, but as usual, I'm very generous in grading, so the score is not too bad. And we are going to review the questions and the answers of midterm next Monday, hopefully next Monday. I think that's very important. So we are going to spend the whole class talking about the midterm and the related knowledge points. Because to me, the things that have been covered in the midterm is like the foundation for network security. Even though in the future, in your work or in your research, you may find a lot of fancy things in network security, but I believe that is the foundation. The protocol, the vulnerabilities in protocol, how to abuse the protocol, that's the foundation. So we will spend one class talking about that next week. Lab 3 has been posted. It's due next Wednesday. And it's not very difficult. I'm not asking all of you to figure out which command to use. I gave you the command, but still you need to figure out the sequence numbers, acknowledgement numbers to pull out the TCP attack. So because the midterm is very important, so the homework 2 and the quiz 3, we are going to repeat some questions that has been in the midterm. So hopefully you can get it this time. And this Friday, we are canceling the class because we are hosting an IA symposium. So it's in Skysun. It should be very interesting. We have some industry partners, all states coming, and also FBI coming. Yeah.
I just want to ask you, did we not do very well in the midterm?
Someone did very good. But the average is, even though I have to be very generous, but the average is not high. Yeah. And also, the Thor snap, you have been using the snap. So the team, they have find out a lot of problems when you use the system. So they want to do a questionnaire. So this questionnaire is not specifically tied how you use the system, but it's more like the learning style you prefer. So they want to add some new features in the system. So this is a volunteer. You don't have to do it, but if you do it, I will give you 1 extra point. So this is not urgent. I will post it maybe today, so you can finish in a week. I take a look. It may take you 5 minutes to do the survey. Yeah. So last class, we talked about firewall. We said firewall is like the first line of defense. It usually analyzes network and the transport layer headers. They don't look at, only look at the IP headers, TCP headers. Usually, they don't look at the application layer headers and the data. So the reason for that is firewall is unpassed. They have to make it very fast so it can support a very high throughput. So firewall can enforce all kinds of policies based on the information in those headers, like protocol type, source address, destination address, and if the firewall is a stateful firewall, they can also consider the collection states. So for the packets that do not match any policy, the packet will be rejected by the firewall. So the limitation of firewall is it doesn't look at the application layer data, but that data could be malicious. Imagine we have a web server running and the attacker tries to attack our web server. So our web server is an application running in the web server operating system. So that application may have some vulnerabilities. The vulnerability could be in the application, it could be in the operating system. But this data part is only read by the application. the operating system does not care about the application payload. So if the malicious code, malicious data, it could be code, is in the payload part, your firewall cannot detect that. That's why this kind of attack is very prevalent in real world actually. So if you Google remote code injection, something like that, you got a lot of vulnerabilities. There are a lot of CVEs. So, and that is the most serious type of attack. But this kind of attack is not directly tied with the protocol. It's more like application. And it's more like there is a vulnerability in your application or a vulnerability in your operating system. So it's like a software security related or operating system security related problem, not really a network security problem. But those data, they come from the network. They come from a remote host. So network, at the network side, we have an opportunity to stop those kind of attacks. So that's why in this class, today's class, we're going to talk about another type of defense system called the network intrusion detection system. So network intrusion detection system is different from firewall. Firewall only look at the IP headers, TCP headers, and the network intrusion detection system can inspect the whole payload, the whole packet, including the IP headers, TCP headers, and the application payload. So in order to understand what is network intrusion detection system, we will first look at what is intrusion detection system and intrusion prevention system in general. So basically, how we define intrusion. So the intrusion is a set of actions aimed to compromise the security goals. So the CIA, confidentiality, integrity, or availability. So this kind of attack can target network devices or host computing systems. And intrusion detection is a process to identify those kind of malicious activities. And intrusion just identify, just to detect. And intrusion prevention is the process to protect computers from those kind of attacks. So firewall is kind of a prevention technique, but it is not, normally we don't say firewall is intrusion prevention because firewall doesn't look at those high-level application data, so there is no semantics to construct what is intrusion or not for firewalls. Firewall only care about the IP and the TCP headers. So if we want to do intrusion detection, first we need to assume that we can observe the activities in the system. The system could be a host system, could also be a network system. And we also need to assume that the normal benign activities, they are different from malicious activities. If there is no difference, then there is no way for us to detect any kind of detection. So the major components in any intrusion detection system are, first we need some features. The features could be the fields in the IP headers, TCP headers, and application headers, and also application payload. And also we need a model to either specify this is a pattern for benign activities, or this is a pattern for malicious activities. And if you are building a system like this, there are knowledge-based decision engines, audit data processors, some modules like that. So it depends on where you want to put your intrusion detection system. We can classify them into host-based and network-based. This is very similar to firewall. So firewall, we also have a network-based firewall and host-based firewall. But basically, no matter it's network-based and host-based firewall, they do the same thing. They inspect the IP headers, TCP headers, UDP headers. But the intrusion detection system is kind of different. So network intrusion detection system and the host-based intrusion detection, they can be totally different because they have a different view. The network-based intrusion detection system, they can only view the network packets that go through the intrusion detection system. However, the host-based intrusion detection system, they can view everything in the host system. Also depends on where you put it. You can put it as an application, you can put it as part of the kernel, or even you can put it in the hypervisor, part of Zen. So depends on where you put it, they have different view of the system. So if you put them in the Zen, the hypervisor in cloud, you will be able to see everything, including which VM virtual machine is running on top of this system, and in this virtual machine, what process is running. And if you put it in a kernel, you will be able to see all the memories of that host system and also what processes has been running. So it depends on where you put it. But they can also see the network packets because the network packets will first go through your network adapter to your Zen, to your virtual machine, and to your application eventually. So it depends on where you put this intrusion detection system, their capabilities are also different. So host-based host-based IDS, usually we are talking about at the operating system level, but in research right now it's very hot to put those host-based intrusion detection system in the hypervisor or in another. Actually, one of the projects I'm working on is using a hardware feature called Trust Zone. So the Trust Zone is in everyone's phone. So your phone, no matter you are using iPhone or you are using Android, they are using ARM CPU, and the ARM CPU offers a new feature called Trust Zone. So basically, that Trust Zone will split your CPU virtually to two CPUs. One is called the normal world, another one is called the secure world. So basically, the normal world, you will just run your Android or iOS, and the secure world, you can run a small operating system there, whatever you want. But the normal world cannot access the secure world, or the secure world can access everything in the normal world. So we can put what we are doing right now, we are putting something like an intrusion detection system in the secure world. So we can monitor everything goes on in the normal world and just on your phone. So the problem of this host-based IDS is the user or the administrator, they have to install this. And if attacker takes over the machine, takes over the host, they can tamper with this intrusion detection system. They can modify audit logs. That's why we are putting the intrusion detection system in the secure world, because even if the attacker compromises the local world, it will be hard for them to change the secure world. It will be hard for them to tamper our intrusion detection system. And another problem is usually it only has a local view of attack, because the current attacks, they usually have very complicated flow. They are coordinated, but if the host-based intrusion detection system, they can only look at its own host, even though we can make it collaborative. So in 1987, so we have a paper called an intrusion detection system model, published by Dorothy Dunning. So this is like one of the earliest paper in host-based intrusion detection system. So basically what it does, it proposes a way to extract information from the local audit record. So the local audit record is kind of like some kind of log. So which user has logged in the system, what command the user issued, and when did that user logged out. So basically in this paper, they proposed to build a model based on normal users' action sequence. So normal user will log in, then log out, execute this sequence of commands. They build a model of that. Then so they compare the log with that normal sequence of actions and to say if there are any deviations. If there are, then it may mean this system has been compromised. Some attacker has been abused this system. So we will talk later. This kind of model is called an anomaly-based intrusion detection system. So the network, going back to the network-based intrusion system, so usually they are deployed as sensors at some important locations of the network. So the network traffic can go through the intrusion detection system. Usually they will only inspect the network traffic, watch for violations of protocols, unusual collection patterns. So some of those responsibilities overlap with what Firewall does. And but what is different is intrusion detection systems, they will also look into the packet payload. So they do much more than the Firewall. So the limitation is obviously because they have to do a lot of more work than Firewall, it will be much more slower than Firewall. So they have to process huge amount of traffic. And if they are using any signature in the application payload, those kind of signatures can be easily obfuscated or encrypted. So we will talk about that in detail in a moment. So the most famous and widely used intrusion network-based intrusion detection system is called Snort because it's open source, it's free. So those commercial intrusion detection systems on the market are very, very expensive. And Snort was published in 1999. It's called a lightweight intrusion detection for networks, published by Martin. So we classify the intrusion detection system based on where it resides, and we can also classify intrusion detection system based on the mechanism they use. Basically, there are two different approaches to build intrusion detection system. The first one is called misuse detection. It is also called signature-based intrusion detection. So basically, in this approach, all the malicious behaviors are defined first. And how do we define that? Usually, we have some pre-configured, predetermined patterns. And those patterns, we call it signatures. So this is very similar to the signature used in antivirus systems. So the antivirus systems, they use signatures. Those signatures may have a wildcard. So they compare that signature with each file on your system to say if they find a match. Usually they use regular expression to do that match. So misuse-based detection do the same thing. So they can use those byte sequence as a signature to match malicious payload. And they can also use the IP or TCP header fields. And another way, different from misuse detection, is called anomaly detection. This is the way used in the paper we showed before. So basically, they use some statistic-based method. They want to build a model for normal behaviors. So in misuse detection, we want to build a model or sequence or signature for malicious behaviors. In anomaly detection, we build a model for benign or normal behaviors. Then all other behaviors that do not match with those behaviors will be marked as malicious. So misuse detection is widely used in commercial tools, including Snort, but anomaly detection has been very hot area for many years. Because the problem of misuse detection is you can only use this to detect known attacks. In order to detect some attack, you have to already have this signature for it. If you don't have the signature, you cannot identify that. But this anomaly detection, in theory, it can detect new attacks because the new attacks, they are different from benign behaviors. However, there has been a lot of problems, so it has not been widely used in reality. Yeah.
So is anomaly detection the same as like dynamic intrusion detection, or are those two different?
No, I'm not sure about the word dynamic intrusion detection. Yeah. Yeah. Where did you pick up that word?
I was talking to one of the grad students.
Okay. So maybe that is something they are proposing, or maybe it's something from some commercial tools. Yeah. So basically, those two are used in textbook. The two basic categories. So in order to use this misuse detection, you need some kind of a database of signatures, and depends on it's host-based or network-based. Those signature could be different. The signature could be a sequence of system calls and the system call parameters. So if you find in a host, if your host-based intrusion detection system finds that some application is calling this sequence, this system calls and giving these parameters, maybe it's malicious. And in network intrusion detection system, usually they are just a byte sequence with wildcard. This is very similar to the antivirus system. Just the thing you are comparing is different. In antivirus, you are comparing all the files in your memory and in your local disk. And in network intrusion detection, you are comparing the network traffic. So the advantage of misuse detection is it's very accurate. It is being used in real-world systems, such as Snort we talked about. We will revisit Snort later because we have one lamp. You will use a Snort to study intrusion detection systems. So here is an example. So this is a rule in a misuse detection system, intrusion detection. So the rule is if the network traffic contains this byte sequence, then we know this is an attack. So in order to detect this specific attack, you have to first generate this string. But how to generate the string may be beyond the scope of intrusion detection. It's you can manually, some companies, they have a lot of researchers. They manually analyze malware, manually analyze network traffic to generate signatures like this. And there are some automatic tools to generate strings like this. But an intrusion detection system, usually they don't generate that. They just take this as input. As soon as they say something like this in the network traffic, they will raise an alarm. So in anomaly detection system, we need to define a model or profile to describe benign behaviors, normal behaviors. Then you need to detect, is there any deviations? So when you detect the deviation, usually you need to compute the distance between this malicious behavior to your normal behavior. So you can imagine you can use a lot of machine learning techniques there to do this kind of anomaly detection. So they can also specify some rules. For example, the normal behavior is the number of TCP collections will increase slowly. So even though this is not a very accurate quantified way to say how slow, but they can set some kind of a threshold there, maybe 5 more collections a second. So if the intrusion detection system identifies that there has been 2,000 TCP collections in 5 seconds, then it will raise an alarm saying there is an attack. So in this kind of intrusion detection system, there is no signature. So in theory, it can detect a potential new attacks, even though it doesn't know what attack it is, but it knows something is suspicious. So maybe malicious. So how can we judge and compare intrusion detection systems? So there are 4 metrics. False positive, which says, indicate incorrectly indication of the presence of an intrusion. And the true positive correctly indicates the presence of an intrusion. False selective incorrectly indicates the absence of an intrusion. So, and the last one is true negative. So let's say how our signature-based and anomaly-based system do regard of this matrix. So first, the signature-based systems, usually they have very low false positives. Because this depends on how you choose the signature. But usually the signature you choose are very long. They are like 20 or even longer than 20 bytes with wildcard. So if the intrusion detection system, same as your antivirus system, they say, I detect this network traffic is malicious, or I detect this firewall is a malware, it's very possible that it is true. So they have very low false positive rate and very high true positive rate. The reason is the signature is very long. The chance for any random data stream to match that signature is very low. However, they have very low true negative rate. True negative means if I say this one is benign, I say it's not malicious, and it is actually really benign. That the signature-based, they have a very low true negative rate because the signatures we are using can be easily obfuscated. We can easily hide those signatures. So usually in antivirus, those signatures, they are a sequence of instructions. So if you take serial computation before, you know that there is no way for you to tell if two program pieces, they are equivalent in function. There is no way to tell that. So technically, for attackers, they have unlimited ways to obfuscate that piece of program. In this case, the piece of program will be byte sequence. It will be a sequence of instructions. There are unlimited ways for them to achieve the same functionality by reusing other instructions. And when they use another instruction, when they change the instruction sequence, obviously that new program will not match your signature. So the true negative rate is very low. And on the other hand, anomaly-based intrusion detection systems, even though they are just being researched in academia, not really used in industry, they have a high false positive rate because they build a profile for the benign behaviors. But this profile is very hard to build. But I would be interested to see if this new deep learning thing in machine learning can really change things. Maybe they can boost the performance of anomaly-based intrusion detection, maybe. But the advantage of anomaly-based detection system, you have to remember that, is in theory, they can detect new attacks. So how can we compare a firewall with intrusion detection system? So first is firewall only look at certain fields. And the intrusion detection system, they can look at the whole payload, the whole packet. So usually they are relatively slow. So a firewall, if this packet doesn't match any rules, the firewall usually will just reject that packet. That is called fail close. But an intrusion detection system, usually the job is to detect some kind of attack. So if a packet doesn't match any intrusion detection rules, the intrusion detection system will not drop it, will not raise any alarm, and that is called a fail open. And also, because the network intrusion detection systems, like I said, they look at the whole packet. They are very slow. So usually they are not deployed on the data path. So the firewall is at the choke point, but the intrusion detection system is like an additional system that sits aside, and if they detect something, they will raise alarm. So this is a picture of the network topology of a company. So they have a host here, and we have an attacker from the internet, and this is a router for this company, and the company's router, after that, they have a firewall, and the firewall is sitting on the data path, and there will be a network switch to collect all the hosts. So usually the intrusion detection system will not be on the data path, and the switch will just duplicate all the network packets sending to this switch to the intrusion detection system. Any questions so far? Okay. So next, we will look at Snort, because this is the system you are going to use in the lab. So Snort is a very compact development, very small, fast to run, and it's portable, available on all kinds of platforms. It's very easy to configure. It uses its own rule language. So we will take a look in a minute, the language. So in Snort, you can input some rules, and those rules can specify when Snort should raise an alarm, when it should mark an event, and it can also drop packets with the help of IP tables, actually. So Snort is open source, free to use. There are 4 different modes in Snort. The first one is called the Sniffer Mode. So basically, if you run your Snort in Sniffer Mode, it seems like you are running Wireshark or TCP dump. They are basically the same thing. So basically you are not using it as an intrusion detection system, but just a sniffer. And also you can use it as a packet logger. So it will record the network traffic in a file. This is also same as Wireshark or TCP dump. And most importantly, they can be run in the network intrusion detection system mode and the network intrusion prevention system mode. So the NIDS is the default mode. So in this mode, it can match some signatures. The Snort, they do not do anomaly-based detection. Even though if you read the Snort manual, and if you read someone's blog, you may say that Snort does anomaly-based detection. But that is not actually the definition we use in academia for anomaly-based detection. So basically, they only do signature-based. And if you use it as an intrusion detection mode, they can either raise an alarm or log something, but they will not drop the packet. But if you use it as intrusion prevention mode, they can drop some malicious packet with the help of IP tables. So Sniffer mode, very easy to use. You just do snort and the port and the V, and it can display all the TCP IP headers on the console. And if you want to show all the data as well, like what you see in the Wireshark, you need to specify VD. And package logger mode, almost the same. You just need to specify where you want to log it. And you can log it on a remote machine, or you can log the activities on a network, on one network specifically. And it can also read the log files. It's like Wireshark, you can do the same thing. For example, if you want to check the ICMP package only in a log file, then you can specify the protocol here, ICMP. It will be used as a field in the IP headers. So if you want to use it really as an intrusion detection system to analyze traffics by using misuse detection, you need to configure your rules. And when you run it, you need to use this configuration. So basically here is what you put those configuration, those rules. Those rules should have those signatures. Here is an example. So here we have a rule. So the rule says alert ICMP any, which means any host, any port, and this is a direction symbol. Says to, this is like to any destination host, any destination port. So if we get any match like this, so from any port number, any host to any port number, any host, and the packet is an ICMP packet, the Snort will alert the administrator, and with this message, ICMP packet detected. So in the intrusion response mode, Snort do not only raise alerts, but can also drop traffic. So to drop traffic, obviously, we cannot use the previous network topology we discussed. The network intrusion detection system cannot sit off path. It has to sit on the data path, like the firewall. So this is an example of Snort rules. So usually they are flexible, easy to specify. So you are going to do this in the next lab. So basically here we have the rule says the Snort should raise an alarm if it's a TCP from the external network, from this port number to our network, any port number, and the flags is the TCP collection flags. So A+ means all the flags. So no matter which flag, it could be SYN, it could be ACK, doesn't matter. And the content is the payload. So the content is the signature we want to match the application payload. So in this case, this is a signature used to identify this sub-7 Trojan. So, so we have a lab for you to work on this intrusion detection system. So any questions so far? Yeah.
Is it like updated really often and pretty real?
Yes. So usually configuring this kind of thing, it's very difficult. Mm-hmm. And there are some companies, they offer some kind of a fee. So more like they have researchers to detect known malwares or whatever. Then they offer this is a signature, and you can use it I can translate it into Snort Rules, and you can use it. But something like this, for a big company, they may have 10,000 of rules or even more.
Are there vendors that just sell rules?
Yes, there are. So actually, in our IA symposium, we are working with a company, Allstate. Allstate is actually an insurance company, but they have this need to detect all kinds of intrusions and also APTs, advanced persistent threat. So they generate their own rules and they get rules from other companies. There are other local companies like Earning and Warning, they also generate something like this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, is there any concern about impacting bandwidth with IDS?
Yes, depends on where you put it, right? So if you are putting it this way, it doesn't really matter. So
it's
if,
like you're still getting all the traffic that could.
yes, you are getting all the traffic, but the IDS itself may not be able to consume all the traffic. It will maybe do some kind of sampling, but it will not affect the other network.
But wouldn't that still leave you open to attack?
That's possible, quite possible. So when was the last time you heard a company is totally free from attacks? So even if you have something like this, your network is not secure. Yeah.
In that model, you're siphoning off a portion of the traffic.
Yes.
Through your IDS.
Yes.
Okay.
So one of the problem of all these systems, even like this, is they are not detecting all the traffic in your network, especially firewall. They only says the traffic at the boundary of the network. So even the intrusion detection system, the same thing. So one of the problem is insider threats. So how can you detect insider threats? But we are going to talk about that in software-defined networking part because that opens the door for insider threat detection. Any other questions? Cool. See you next Monday. Yeah.